Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms. You know, Wake Up Africa, it's becoming for me like, a message from the ancient ones, because I feel every time when I'm doing my early morning, meditation, I always get these downloads. And the latest message I got was like, we're all so worried about being cloned, by the new jab and about being altered because they're saying it's going to be like a chimera. If you don't know what a chimera was, it's like when they started mixing, lions and tigers and humans and horses, etc., etc. But a lot of people are fearing that's going to happen, but they don't already realize that the cloning process started way before. Because I keep saying, beloveds, this is a spiritual world first. And what has happened is that because you've been made to focus so much physically, you miss the spiritual world. When the spiritual world is everything and the physical world is like, I don't want to say, like I'm giving us some kind of sign, but it's a tiny part of the whole picture, And the thing is, because we were kind of taken out of ourselves, we have literally been, systematically cloned for the last 100 years. It started when, our, religion was beaten into our ancestors. And then they were told, here in Kenya, I don't know how it happened across the world, but one thing you notice about Kenya compared to, or East Africa compared to West Africa is we don't even have like really traditional clothes that people wear on the regular. We're so westernized, even in our clothing. And one story that I was told by the elderly women that I interviewed during my PhD was that, there was a famine that came in the early 1900s. And that was when the missionaries were first coming and people were dying off, etc., etc. A lot of people lost their crops, etc., etc. And when they went to the missionaries, it was like you had to leave your clothes behind and wear Western clothes in order to be fed. And, some made the decision to do it. Others chose to die as they were, and it's all about how you interpret death. But those are just stories for other days. But it shows you that systematically we were cloned, we were pulled into their reality. And it's just like, now, the ancients are back, beloveds. They're here. Our world is back. I can't, there's so much that has happened. We really were in the dark ages where we almost couldn't connect to some of our, ancient bloodlines. But now we've moved into a whole new era where there's so much going on. If only you would be able to open your spiritual eye to see it. But the main thing that we need to realize is that, the cloning started spiritually first when we started to worship their gods as a people, as a collective. The majority of people, like for example, the majority of people in Kenya believe that Jesus is a Muzungu and he really was the Son of God and he died on the cross for our sins. I mean, the majority of people believe that. And they believe in the Muzungu image. And that Muzungu image shatters their spirit daily because it disconnects. Who are they calling to? Who are you calling to? And you see, we live in a world where we as a physical being have to draw the spiritual here. We have to draw heaven here. We have to draw our greatest imagination, our greatest dreams into this reality. But if you're busy worshiping something that doesn't even look, what are you doing? And this is why our people, many of us are suffering from a serious mental illness and mental psychosis called religion. And it's created all kinds of split personalities in us. But this is part of the cloning, beloveds. This is part of the cloning. And that part has been very effective. That's where they started spiritually. And then, mentally and psychologically and emotionally through their systems, through their 7 pillars, through education, through media, through entertainment, through, the way the social system was set up, where now we had hospitals. And because what happened is that freedom wasn't just given at the end of the colonial era. It wasn't just handed to us and Kenya became Kenya. No, there were many nations who were demanding that we be returned to our former borders. But what happened is they got a petty bourgeois who were totally just shattered spiritually, had joined the secret societies, etc., to kind of take on their system. And then they said, okay, listen, you become Tanzania first, you become Kenya first, you become Uganda first, you become Ghana first. Then once that is all done, this is what the United Nations decided. What was it then? The first League of Nations. And then once you do that, then now you can figure out like, okay, the Maasai people lived here, so Tanzania will give this land to Kenya and Kenya will give this land to the Maasai. And of course, like with the people who were already in the capitalist system, they couldn't remove the system. And that was that's why we always say that the second liberation was not a true liberation. That was the independence. It wasn't a true liberation because we took on their systems, thinking if we remove them from the system, we could, run the system. But when you look at things, like nothing is done by accident. Even if you were to look at the parliament here in Kenya, there's so many like Masonic symbols and Luciferian this. And so when people are walking into those chambers, so many rituals have been done. So we tried to think we were just inheriting a system, but we weren't. We were inheriting something so much deeper. And this is where the cloning began. And then we sent our children to their schools and they shattered our children. You couldn't talk, I remember some of my aunts telling me you couldn't even speak Kikuyu in the classroom. Otherwise you'd be beaten, you'd be punished. This is the psychology of colonialism. And you guys need to look into the book of the destruction of the black civilization and things like that, just because I don't think a lot of us fully appreciate enough exactly what happened and how we were shattered and how we've been systematically cloned. And now we're in the final stages of that cloning system where the body is changed forever. But let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Wake up, Africa! Welcome back, beloveds, to Wake Up Africa. I'm going to call this a message from the ancient ones because I really feel, as I get deeper into my meditations and just being in nature the majority of my time, totally off, the global grid, unless I'm doing this show, because I really do feel that this is a calling. And, there's so many of us that have connected over the last 3 years that we're really in this together at this point. And thanks for all your emails, as beloveds. Thanks for everyone that supports us on Patreon. I appreciate love my Patreon family so much. Go ahead and consider joining to enable us to continue to bring the awakening messages and the awakening news from Eden, literally the foothills of Mount Zion. There's a lot happening, and I love that so many of us are spiritually connected to Kopamoja for real. But I was talking about how cloned, and how we're so worried about being cloned, by the jab or whatever, but we don't realize that the cloning process has been happening. It happens spiritually first, although many have shattered that now, and many have returned back to their African spirituality. But then now we see, with the education, with the economics, the fact that we're so in their system, and we really do feel like their system is superior, many of our people, that also is another form of cloning, because first they cloned our spiritual world. They shattered it. They killed all our teachers, all our seers, or many of them went into the wilderness, and I have to do another Wake Up Africa on the vow of silence and how that has impacted us today. But those are definitely stories I'll cover very, very soon. But a lot of our teachers, and either they disappeared before it happened, or they were taken out. And then and because we didn't write anything down, everything was passed on spiritually. When they cut us off from our ancestors and now brought their ancestors to us for us to focus on, it created a massive spiritual confusion, shattering that we've kind of been trying to put together. And many, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, it's about putting back the pieces together. And we're at the end point, beloveds. Everyone is at an end point, trying to determine what happens next. But let me tell you, we're standing on the side of victory, for real, for real. But this thing of being cloned, and then we were cloned in terms of, now that I'm living in the countryside, a friend of mine came to visit me, and, he's not from here. So he was telling me how I had never noticed us Kenyans, like all of us are dressed like the Mzungu, especially because here we're by the mountains, so you'll see people with their jackets and their hats and everything, and no one even, we don't have our own traditional dress, and then when you look at the diet, a lot of people are eating cabbages and potatoes, etc., etc. And then when I was putting together like my my medicinal trees garden, and I was asking my staff to bring me certain trees like the bitter leaf, for example, or the moringa I had plenty, but like moringa here is hardware. They use it to build shells and stuff when it's actually like one of the highest level medicines, Bitter leaf is something that they just leave in the forest. So this is how we've lost ourselves, because we have all the remedies around us, even just growing in the wilderness. But we'll run and take that Babylon pill, and it shows you that it's a mental colonization that is almost complete, or is totally complete in many of our people. And that's why we're going to have to leave many of our people behind, beloveds. I pray that they make it. I pray that there's this amazing shifting. I pray that those of us who are awakened, who are, elevated, when we come together, because we will come together, and we chant down Babylon, and we chant for our people, that we will have risen to a level where we can impact as many of our brothers and sisters as possible to really create the shift and the change. And that's why I don't focus so much on anything that we're trying to do has to be done spiritually, beloveds. I've done the UNs, I've done the NGOs, I've looked at every angle, and the only way that we are going to save our people is spiritual, because that's where the cloning started. And that's the only place that the cloning can be, shattered, because they've already cloned us spiritually through religion. Psychologically, the fact that we speak their language, and now, our children who are not learning the ancient tongues are now even dreaming in their language. I mean, it's deep, beloveds. It's deep. And so, it's almost like the whole ascension they talk from is more of a disconnection from a world that isn't yours, so that you can discover who you really are and what this world is about. And it has nothing to do with this false matrix that we've all been pulled into. But the thing is, if your consciousness is still connected to the false matrix, you will be cloned, and you will fall with Babylon. Like, the cloning will be complete. So the only way to return to yourself and to be awakened and to elevate and to even just spiritually start moving somewhere is to start disconnecting. Disconnect from the matrix as much as possible. Because all the knowledge is there, and I'll definitely cover it in a vow of silence. That will be the next, message from the ancient ones that I'm feeling. But you've already been almost 80% cloned, beloveds. You need to unclone yourself mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. And start today by seeking out the truth, because the truth shall make you free. There's so much we can share, beloveds, but people are still on spiritual milk. And you have to unclone yourself. And that means even what you eat, beloveds. Because that's part of the cloning. Everything you absorb becomes you. And we don't know that words, conversations, music, all of that are forms of nourishment for our body that build up, the reality we see around us. Anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Unclone yourself, beloveds. It's time, and it's going to be, it's quick, but it takes a long time. If you know, you know. Tuko pamoja.